The Doctor in the TARDIS. Next stop, everywhere.
Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Charles Skaggs, back in the TARDIS, trying to avoid the planet Earth as much as possible right now, at least around 2020. But thankfully, here to keep me company once again is my partner in time, Jesse Jackson. How you doing, Jesse?
I am great, Charles. It feels like Christmas today for multiple reasons.
Yes.
One, the story we're talking about, and two, our special guest companion. Anytime she joins us, it always feels like a holiday.
Exactly. So it's Christmas in July because, once again, joining us is our wonderful special guest companion, Hannah Skorapa. Welcome back to Next Stop Everywhere, even though it seems like you just left us last week. Oh, wait, you did! How you doing, Hannah?
I'm doing great, Charles. Really grateful to be back here to talk this one. I mean, it's another Victorian era. Well, that was Edwardian. So let's just say 19th to 20th century holiday-themed horror Doctor Who episode.
Yes,
and absolutely nothing wrong with that, as far as I'm concerned.
No, nothing wrong with that.
So, here at episode 191, we are talking, you guessed it, The Unquiet Dead. The third episode of Doctor Who Series 1 from 2005. So, happy 15th anniversary to The Unquiet Dead. Written by Mark Gatiss, who a lot of people know, of course, as Professor Lazarus in the Lazarus Experiment, or Gantok in The Wedding of River Song, if you remember that little cameo, or most notably, Captain Archibald Hamish, Lethbridge Stewart, in Twice Upon a Time, Peter Capaldi's final story. And of course, if you're a fan of his, you know him from other things like playing Mycroft Holmes on Sherlock, or Tycho Nestorius on Game of Thrones, and he's been in The League of Gentlemen and many, many other things out there.
Also Dracula and Big Finish.
Yes, exactly. Many, many Big Finish audios, and also writer of the Doctor Who novel Iceberg from back in the day.
Yeah, and I was going to ask, do you feel like he is more known as an actor or a writer? Because he has written a lot of stuff.
I would say, he does a lot of acting as well. So I basically hyphenate him and go, that writer / actor.
Okay, good.
I think
that's fair.
Double threat, because he does a lot of that, and obviously he does a lot of that for Doctor Who. Obviously written several stories for Doctor Who, including this one. But and then also this one was directed by Euros Lyn, who directed some notable episodes like The End of the World, the previous episode to this one, The Girl in the Fireplace, which one or two people may enjoy, including yours truly, right? And my wife Lori. And then a little story you may know called The End of Time, the last two parts of David Tennant's era back in the day. And, of course, this stars Christopher Eccleston as the Ninth Doctor and Billie Piper as Rose Tyler. So, Jesse, obviously we're finally back in the modern era, so I'm guessing you feel a little more secure now. You're on your home turf as a new Who fan.
Absolutely. And I also, I have not, just one of the things, I've never gone through and rewatched, like start from the beginning of the modern era and watched every episode. I have gone and watched multiple episodes, kind of just picking them. And so I'm always happy when we go back to Eccleston, just because I really only watched that season when I first got the DVDs from Ken, and so I haven't gone back and explored a lot of them again. And I continue just to love this Doctor, and just really, really like revisiting these episodes. So yes, I'm very happy to be back in the modern era, though always good to watch classic stuff too.
Exactly. So both eras equally valid as far as I'm concerned, and I'm sure a lot of you out there, including our special guest companion Hannah. Now, Hannah, you mentioned earlier that you were up for this one because it was, in that kind of Victorian/Edwardian era. And so is there any other reason in particular that once we mentioned that we didn't have a host last week, that you're like, ooh, I want to join. Can I join, please? Please?
Well, Charles, I'm also I've recently gained a newfound appreciation for Series 1 because, kind of like Jesse, I had not rewatched Eccleston since I initially got into Who way all those years ago in 2012. When during last year's big hiatus, I got on a binge rewatching of it all, and I come to really, really enjoy this one a lot more because, in my mind, for the longest time, Eccleston was like, oh, he's just the guy that comes before my doctor.
Right.
But after that grand rewatching session, I was like, I can see why the show got renewed during that first series. So, and also this one is, when it comes to historicals in the modern era, you get conversations about Girl in the Fireplace, Vincent and the Doctor, but this one I don't think gets brought up enough, and it's pretty significant as it's the first historical, among other things I'm sure you'll get into with your trivia.
Yeah. Just one or two things. I guess I'm kind of like tipping my hand with the trivia thing because that's my thing, right? But yeah, you obviously bring up a great point that this is the first time we go back in time, that first historical setting for modern Who, new Who, and what I really enjoy, what I personally enjoy about this episode, and I think it's a bit underrated, this episode, is that it, because it's, this introduced the concept of going backwards in time. History, period settings or historical settings tend to turn off a lot of people. But yes, I heard what you did, trying to sneak that in there. All right, but I'm sorry, I'm just picking on you. So, so the historical settings, tend to turn off some people, and what I really love about this episode, it kind of set the tone about how to tell a historical setting, Doctor Who episode for the modern era. To keep things light and fun and energetic and the pacing up, and because obviously it's only a 45-minute time limit here for the episodes in modern era. So you have to tell a quicker story at a faster pace, but just the energy of the characters, the humor of the situation that they're in, and I think the tone that kind of is set here in this story carries through for a lot of other historical period episodes later on in the show.
Yeah, Charles, if we can just kind of talk for a minute in context, and it's hard for us to remember. You do remember,
right?
But Doctor Who had been off the air for a long time.
Yes, it has.
And Doctor Who,
I
to
lived
a
through
lot
that.
of
Yes.
a lot of people in America, as Mark Waid said, was that show with the guy with the long, scarf, and Doctor Who fans were the ones Star Trek fans mocked. Right? Like in this, like all the Star Trek fans were getting mocked by everyone else, and so Star Trek fans mocked, and that's Mark Waid's words, not mine. And so you've got this, in many ways, a brand new show.
Yes.
With a concept you've got to sell. You've got to sell that there's a mysterious alien. He travels in space and time, and within 3 episodes, here's an adventure on Earth, here's the far future, here's the past. And this is not going to be a procedural where it is similar episodes every time. There is enough range in this, and I think they did all this heavy lifting while giving us a good story. If we had said, well, Jesse, I know this was kind of dry, but understand what they were trying to do, I think that would be fair. But in this case, they did all that heavy lifting and gave us a really solid story. I mean, I rated it high. I mean, it's too early to give our ratings, but I give this really high. And I agree with Hannah.
Spoilers.
Yes, it's not something I hadn't thought about, but watching it again, I'm like, gosh, this should be one of the classic Who's.
Yeah, I think, it's a credit to Russell T. Davies, I think, because obviously this was a very deliberate choice on his part to, like you said, Episode 1 set in the modern era, Episode 2 set in the future, Episode 3 set in the past. So within 3 episodes, you basically have the general concept of Doctor Who. We can travel around Earth, fight aliens. We can go into the future, fight aliens, or we can go back in the past and fight aliens. And,
Yes.
or whatever horrible creatures. Not necessarily aliens sometimes. But, just that for people that, like you said back in the day, in 2005, they had no idea of the classic era, a lot of them. It had to be reintroduced. I mean, this is a brand new generation who, Doctor Who had been off since 1989 with only the 1996 TV movie to kind of help give fans like me starved for clawing through the wilderness years, desperate for new Who. And so, this is, they had no concept really. And, like you said, it wasn't even, back in the 80s or back in the day, only people knew about Tom Baker primarily from PBS or whatever.
And, and just to put it in context, I was just sitting here thinking this, and partly because those who can't see, Chris Jackson is behind me still working. Chris was born in 89. And so he would have been a sophomore in high school in 2005.
Right.
That's how long of a time period we didn't have Doctor Who. Someone was born and would have gotten in high school in between that time, if you don't count the movie. So that's an amazing amount of time that – and I still praise Russell T. Davies because he figured out how to do it new, yet retain all the classic – and all the things to make it, that it is seamlessly, it feels like the same show.
Yeah, and for example, Hannah, you were just a kid when Doctor Who came back.
Yep, I still on topic, I did find this coaster I painted in 2005 fairly recently. So
yeah.
Looking back at that, it's hard to believe that was 15 years ago because I remember doing that and I was in kindergarten.
Yes.
That's awesome. But see, this is why we love having you on, because you're the next generation of Doctor Who fans.
Yes.
And you're a perfect example of that. And, without even realizing it, you're kind of making me feel old a little bit, but I'm oddly reassured because I know that Doctor Who has a future with fans like yourself. So that kind of makes me feel a little good too. So.
Russell T. Davies and all those writers at the time, they were fans as kids, and it kind of carried on into. They did the things with modern Who that couldn't be done at the time at classic Who that they really wanted to do, and all those stories they wanted to tell.
Right.
Just kind of put things in perspective.
No, exactly. You're right. You're absolutely right, because they were watching their classic series as kids, and then they grew up, and then they took over Doctor Who. So I guess, it's going to be up to your generation to do the same, thinking back here on this era, the new Who era. And so I have to wonder, like, well, what are you guys going to bring to the table down the road? Just the future of Doctor Who. So just kind of makes me, ponder, go, a little bit. But, and I want to give Hannah some props here, because she's wearing a very stylish Back to the Future shirt.
Yep.
So I'm going to give Hannah points for wearing that one. So anyway, because I'm a big Back to the Future fan. So I get to do that.
It's your kids, Rose. We got to do something about your kids.
It just writes itself, doesn't it? That kind of Doctor Who Back to the Future mashup. Exactly. All right. So like I said, we got a lot to talk about at this episode. So let's get right into it. Just going to run down the cast really quickly. We have Eve Myles as Gwyneth, most notably because, hey, she's Gwen Cooper on Torchwood, y'all, or also The Stolen Earth / Journey's End. And she's been on other things like Broadchurch and Victoria and other fine episodes of things. So you know about Eve Myles, so I don't need to go into her background much. Simon Callow plays Charles Dickens after being something of a aficionado, a fan, no pun intended, of Charles Dickens. Performing as him on stage and doing a lot of research about him. So he's very familiar with the character, and kind of had to be convinced that Mark Gatiss' script was going to actually do Charles Dickens justice before he agreed to perform the role here. So, but I'm glad that he did, because I think he's a fabulous Charles Dickens in this. He's really good. And then, of course, he returns later on for a quick cameo in The Wedding of River Song. And he was also in a Sarah Jane Adventures episode called The Gift, where he voiced a character called Tree Blatherine. And he was also in the films Victoria in Abdul, and Shakespeare in Love, and the 2004 Phantom of the Opera, for you musical fans out there. And then I want to mention Alan David as Gabriel Sneed, who is recently in The Crown. And we had Zoe Thorne as the voice of the Gelth. So, pity the Gelth. And you talked about trivia earlier, Hannah, so just drop a little bit of trivia here. In addition to this being the first episode of the new era set in the past, we had Mark Gatiss originally writing this as a set in a spiritualist hotel, which apparently had fake mediums, including a character named Mrs. Plumshoot, and with the idea that on the lower floors you had you had characters like that, and then you had Mr. Sneed at the top, who apparently was unaware that he was a true medium. But, however, Gwyneth became really popular with the production team, so they decided, okay, we'll just make her the medium instead, and forget about the other stuff. And then, also, according to Mark Gatiss, there was originally going to be a scene in which the Doctor was mistaken for Sneed's new cleaner. Someone, according to Gatiss, would have stated, "I thought you would be a woman," to which the Doctor would have replied, "No, not yet." Hinting, of course, that Time Lords could change gender. So, imagine if that had happened in 2005.
Oh, boy.
How could things have been different? But yeah, so they were already talking about that, at least the possibility that could have happened back in 2005. I had to bring that up because I thought it was really interesting when I discovered it on doing my research. So, All right. We have 3 topics, and I've run some of those past Hannah. I forgot to do this with Jesse, so hopefully this won't come as a shock, presuming he's still out there. Because I don't see him on my screen and I don't hear him, so I have no idea if he exists.
I don't hear him or see him either.
Okay, so hopefully he will rejoin us at some point.
Pity the Jesse.
Pity the Jesse. All right. So, topic number 1. Hannah, you might have to help me carry this one a little bit then, so I hope you don't mind. All right. So, topic number 1, The Haunted Man and the Ghost's Bargain. And that's a little nod to a Charles Dickens novella that he wrote. And this I want to talk about the Ninth Doctor and, of course, Charles Dickens. So, because obviously those 2 characters kind of get paired for most of the episode, at least a very fun sequence where the Doctor and Dickens are riding in Dickens' carriage in an attempt to rescue Rose from the evil Gabriel Sneed and Gwyneth from after she gets chloroformed. So, so what did you make of the Doctor in kind of being a fan of Charles Dickens?
Oh, I think kind of thinking in the grand scheme of things back all the way to 2005, I know it was a big deal that they allowed Eccleston to keep his northern accent and all, and obviously they had him dressed pretty casually. Connecting that, him with being such a big fan of Dickens, it makes him seem very relatable, I think, in this story. Because, everybody kind of has a writer or an artist or something that they're a fan of, so it's really cool that this episode shows the Doctor expressing that towards Charles Dickens. I really thought that scene in the carriage was funny.
Yeah. I just love the banner in that one. Just the Doctor being kind of a fanboy. And I love it when the Doctor is a fanboy or a fangirl. And especially, when it involves historical figures. And it was kind of nice when when he's having to explain a concept of fandom to Charles Dickens, which obviously hadn't really existed at that point. He's like, in what way do you consider yourself a fan of keeping a device of keeping yourself cool?
Yeah, I also kind of liked the bit about the constructive criticism. Like, what was that American bit all about?
Yeah. As someone who writes, I totally identified with that. Totally identified with Dickens there, going like, really? You're going to build me up and act like you're my fan, and then you're just going to take a shot at me? What's up with that?
So I know, in general, as soon as the Doctor started singing his praises early in that scene, he just kind of went from being hostile to nope, actually, he can stay. It's like a cat having its chin scratched, because you know what? He's showering me with praise and attention. He can stay in the car. I'm not kicking him out.
Now, one of the things I really love... Oh, by the way, I did get a text from Jesse. Apparently, his PC crashed. So, I kind of wonder, what evil forces are afoot as, going after Jesse here. So, it wasn't me, I swear. It was not my plan. But hopefully he'll be joining us shortly. He told us to keep going, so we'll keep going. All right. One of the things I loved about the Doctor and oh, look, there he is. He's coming back. Jesse, are you with us? You're kind of frozen at the moment. There you go.
I can hear you both. Okay, please continue.
Okay.
Before we were so rudely interrupted.
Yes. I kind of informed everybody that your PC crashed, and I swore that it was not my fault. I didn't do it. I didn't do it. Nobody saw me do it. You can't prove anything.
Exactly.
I'm 1,200 miles away from you. I can't.
Yeah.
Yes.
You have a computer. You could be up to some no good over there.
Yeah.
You
My hands are here.
Okay, all right, we'll see. All right, we'll give you the benefit of the doubt for now. But I was just about to talk about how one of the favorite things that I really loved about the Doctor in Charles Dickens was that Dickens, when he starts off this episode, he's feeling old, feels like he's kind of played out when he's getting ready for a performance, and he kind of feels like he's seen it all, done it all. But this adventure kind of reinvigorates him and gives him a fresh perspective that, hey, maybe I don't know everything. Maybe, and the Doctor points out, there's still things to learn out there. And I thought that was a nice little small character arc for him. And then, of course, he talks about how later at the end of the episode, he talks about how he's going to revise his unfinished novel, The Mystery of Edwin Drood, and give it that kind of the murder will be someone like an alien, and but tragically, the Doctor, as the Doctor mentions to Rose in the TARDIS, that Dickens passes away before he complete that. So it's a little tragic.
Yeah.
So what did you make of that? What did you make of since you weren't able to join us? What did you make of those two characters?
I really like that twist. There was a book a few years ago, The Man Who Saved Christmas, which is a novelization of Dickens' life, and right around the time when he wrote The Christmas Carol, and a movie, and it talked about how his financial situation at the time, and he gambled a lot on that story, and it ended up paying off really well. So that made me think of this, and I did not. I realized at first I was wondering what time period was this, but then you see him reading A Christmas Carol, so this is so. By getting the payback that this is toward the end of his life, it's nice. And you get he says, I'm going to go spend Christmas with my family. And I get the feeling that he was estranged from his family. I don't know how, and I know the actor who played him.
Yeah, Simon Callow. Yeah.
Yeah. Has done that multiple times. And there was, I'm sure you
I talked about
that.
I talked about that. Yeah.
That he had to make sure that it was legitimate before he'd play it. So I thought that was really nice. I love the Doctor and Dickens interactions. This was a great foil. I love the creative choice to have them meet someone famous during their first trip to the past. And you can set the expectation you don't always happen about that. And that isn't something that the show goes too often at. I mean, I think they play it just the right amount of meeting historical figures.
Right.
And so, this was nice. But I agree with you. The idea that they gave him, similar to Vincent and the Doctor, as you guys were talking, that little mental kind of checkup, giving him a sense of optimism toward the end was a really nice twist.
Yeah, it was. The Doctor kind of gives Dickens that kind of feeling of hope, and that there's more to life, and it's just tragically, unfortunately, he's at the end of his life, and so he's not able to follow through on that. But it was nice that the Doctor and Rose were able to kind of give that back to him, if only for a short while, I think.
Absolutely.
And Hannah, do you have anything else you want to add about these two characters?
I was going to say I did like how, similar to Vincent and the Doctor, they kept that historical bit true at the end, that he never did end up finishing The Mystery of Edwin Drood. I thought that in general, Dickens, as a person, portrayed as a character, well, it's multiple layers here.
That's all right.
I thought they were very respectful, and they didn't make him seem... They made him skeptical, but he was not stupid or completely ignorant about the entire situation. The side note regarding Edwin Drood, there's a musical adaptation of that novel where at the end the audience votes who did it, so the cast of the show has to memorize all these different variations on the ending.
Really? I didn't know that.
I just thought I'd point that out.
That's cool.
That is very cool.
The secret of Edwin Drood.
That's a cool little bit of trivia there, Hannah. I like that.
Yeah, very nice trivia.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. That's good. I'm glad someone did their homework, unlike yours truly, apparently. But yeah, that's very cool. I love Simon Callow as Dickens. I think he just, he's obviously very comfortable with the role, having performed it so many times, and obviously that he's very invested in the character, the man, and it shows, I think. And even though this is a sci-fi setting, they like you said, Hannah, they treat Dickens well. He is intelligent. He's the one who comes up with the idea of shutting off the gas initially. He runs through the house to shut off the gas, and turn up the gas. Turning up the gas. Yeah. I had it completely backwards there. So, but yeah, that's his idea. And so he actually contributes to the resolution of the storyline. And it matters. All right. Anything else about these characters before we move on? All right. Topic number 2, A Tale of Two Cities. And this I want to talk about Rose and Gwyneth. So we had the Doctor being paired with Dickens, and now we have Rose being paired a little bit with Gwyneth. And we can also throw in Gabriel Sneed a little bit, since he was the crumb bum that decided, oh hey, let's just kidnap Rose and bring her back to the mortuary, so the funeral parlor. And so Hannah, let's start with you on this one. I know we kind of started with you last time, didn't we? So since Jesse kind of bailed on us, but that's all right. Let's go ahead and do that. So Rose and Gwyneth have a really great bonding a little bit, and Rose, particularly at the end of the episode, is primarily the one really concerned about Gwyneth. And when the Doctor essentially, has the idea of, well, she's got to be the one to close the gateway, and between where the Gelth are and in Earth. So what did you make of these two interacting? Obviously, being two people of very different times, and that kind of bond that they share.
I quite liked it. I did sort of like the whole bit with for all the things that change, some things stay the same, because they got a bit into that conversation about guys.
Right.
And sort of wreaking havoc a bit, mischief. I thought that was a fun little thing. Something I did appreciate was...
Rose is being a bit wicked there, wasn't she?
Yeah. Something I did appreciate, though, was Gwyneth did kind of make Rose a bit aware of, because of her psychic ability. I looked into my head, and because of my background, do you think I'm stupid? Sort of also tying back to our last discussion a bit.
Yeah, we're talking about about people that aren't educated, aren't necessarily stupid.
Yeah.
They're just not as knowledgeable. That's all.
I mean, and it kind of also gives a sense of perspective, because Rose herself, her background, I mean, she lives on an estate. She's technically lower class, but in 2005, she's living a comparatively better life to what Gwyneth is living.
Right.
in 1890. So I thought that nice bit of perspective was a good thing to have. I mean, Rose is a pretty well-written character, and I definitely like that this episode showcased that she wasn't entirely free from the bias of the time she came from.
Exactly. I did like that contrast a lot. And it did kind of put a little twist because, like you said, Rose, where coming from her time, was considered that lower class, and then there's what was it? That she gets called a chav, in New Earth by what's her name? The character Cassandra. Thank you so much. So yeah, she's kind of looked down upon, and then here she is, having attitudes about how poor Gwyneth lives her life. So I think it kind of probably made Rose kind of take a little reevaluation, hopefully, a little bit. What about you, Jesse? What did you make of these two?
I think that's a great point. That Rose, being from a lower middle class, let's say,
right,
would be looking down on someone without even thinking about it. And so the show very smoothly talks about we all have our inborn prejudices and biases. It's very weird seeing Myles
right.
playing this part because, especially since we just had Torchwood Month,
right.
About a month or so ago.
So it does weird you out seeing her as a different character on
just
Doctor
slightly. I got over it very quickly, but it is at first interesting. I also like the scenes where they are bonding, and then also when she's kind of seeing the future London and being how scary it is,
right?
And
it had to be because she's
exactly.
talking about metal birds in the sky and all that,
and so many people.
Yeah, Hannah, do you have some?
Sorry, Jesse.
No. I just was going to real quick. And then also the first time you see this, you don't catch the Bad Wolf reference. You just notice that they say a Bad Wolf, and when you do a rewatch, you see how often Bad Wolf is woven into all the original stories as foreshadow, which is really nice. So in this, it was when Gwyneth, is having the vision, and it is one of the things that is true. And we Whovians, I don't think acknowledge enough, is a lot of people die around the Doctor. Now,
how could you say that? Just because it's true, and
yeah. And our argument is they would have died anyway, and there's less people dying, but it is.
They tend to die faster with the Doctor
yes.
around. Let's just put it that way.
And sometimes, and this is why, and at times the Doctor is very matter-of-fact about people dying.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved Rose's concern. This shows her, and as I continue to enjoy watching Eccleston as the Doctor, these rewatches also get the chance to watch Rose as the companion and see how she grew in that character, which is very enjoyable.
Yeah. So in addition to the oncoming storm that is the Doctor, Hannah, did you have any other thoughts about these two?
I was going to say that bit where Gwyneth, wrong Eve Myles character.
Exactly.
ETH.
Gwyneth. Yeah, I know. It's hard, isn't it? Yeah.
I think it wasn't so much what scared her was the future London. I think it was more she saw Rose as the Bad Wolf in The Parting of the Ways, because that's what spooked her out of her trance, more so than the technological advances of the future.
That's a great observation there. Yeah.
I think that is. I think you were spot on.
That is solid. Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. I think that's a great point. So, You're putting me to shame in this episode. I'm feeling kind of bad. I'm feeling like you should be hosting this thing.
That's why it's Christmas when Hannah visits.
I know. See what happens when the younger generation moves in. You know, you kind of
Exactly.
feel kind of like you're slipping on your game a little bit. So I'm kind of like feeling a little sympathy for Charles Dickens a little bit.
No.
I mean, I only worked this out on this most recent rewatch. I hadn't thought of it like that before.
But no. But see, that's the great thing about rewatches is because, you know, after some time has passed and you've watched other things, you tend to approach episodes differently another time around because of having other experiences. So your perspective changes without you even realizing it. And then you kind of notice things a little bit or you notice things that you just plain forgot to notice or overlooked the first time or didn't, like maybe the first time you heard it but you didn't pay much attention to it. And then you're like, with everything else in context, you're like, you go back and you go, yeah, I guess that mattered more. I guess, and I should pay more attention.
Oh, also, little tidbit, Tosh is in the next episode.
Yes. Yeah, you're absolutely right because, yeah, so this episode we sort of get Gwen Cooper, at least her ancestor. And then in Aliens of London, the next episode, we get Toshiko Sato. So she turns up, and so obviously Russell T. Davies, setting the table for Torchwood.
Yes, he is, absolutely.
Right after that. And then, of course, we get Captain Jack with episode 9, I believe, right? So,
Yeah.
With the empty child. So, yeah, he knows what he's doing. He's a pretty clever guy, that RTD.
He's playing the long game.
Oh, I see what you did there.
Yay, nice.
Nicely done. Nicely done. I'm going to get points again. 2 points for Hannah in this one.
Absolutely.
All right. But any thoughts about Gabriel Sneed being such, so horrible to Gwyneth, or just, being really shady and then kind of like all of a sudden flipping and going, okay, I guess I'm going to help you now?
At the beginning of the episode, another thing I noticed on the rewatch, when you get that guy paying his respects to his grandmama, when she comes out of her coffin and she starts to strangle him, Mr. Sneed says, oh no. Though I realize now it's not so much as, oh no, in terror, or, oh no, this is inconvenient. I got rent-a-mate who's going to pay for this lady's funeral now.
The stiffs are at it again.
Yeah. You
notice he makes a point of, like, he starts to call them stiffs, and then he has to kind of, because he's around people that aren't, from the funeral parlor, he has to kind of check himself a little bit, and he catches himself. I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah, and they wanted that redemption arc similar to Scrooge's, so I think that was a little bit deliberate with the Dickens tie-in. So it was creepy. It was really cool, and typical. He was definitely. If you exclude he is the villain of the piece till you get to the gaseous zombies.
Yeah, exactly.
The gassy zombies.
Yeah.
So I'd like to know what exactly his plan was with Rose after he captured her and shoved her in the carriage, because if he kills her, she's just going to get up and start walking around again and causing him havoc, and it'll also seem suspicious that she disappeared and getting shoved into his hearse. So,
well, that whole thing seemed really skeevy to me.
Yes,
because remember, Rose calls him out. He's like, "Don't think I don't know where your hands were wandering there.
You were handsy,
you dirty
buddy.
Old man."
Yes,
and
I didn't like that.
So
I like that line.
Yeah. So, what is he? I shudder to think what he actually does with some of those more attractive corpses.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm just going to leave that there because I don't want to get. I'm moving along. I'm moving along.
Also, who chooses the last name Sneed? Really?
Yeah.
Who does?
Yeah. Just this guy. Yeah. Just pretty loathsome character as far as I'm concerned. All right.
He deserved to get his neck snapped.
Exactly. He deserved his fate. That's one of the things that Doctor Who does best, is that a lot of characters that really deserve horrible fates, well, guess what? They get them. And it gives that audience, I think, a little bit of satisfaction. So maybe it's kind of deliberate to make the audience feel better that, hey, this guy, for the most part, there are certain exceptions. But for the most part, these kind of characters usually meet a grisly demise. And Snee was no exception.
So, I mean, I'm sure we'll get a bit more into this with the next topic, but another little detail I picked up on this watch, when the Doctor is talking to Gwyneth in the Arch,
right?
I noticed now, little subtle thing Myles was doing is she was slightly slouched to one side. I was kind of that was kind of a clue as to what was really going on to poor Gwyneth at that time.
Oh, okay.
With her not entirely being alive anymore.
Right, because the doctor makes that comment that, well, I think she was dead the moment she went into that gateway, that archway, right? So so you're absolutely right. You're full of good observations today.
She is.
You are like hitting it out of the park today.
Yes, we are not needed, Charles.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, what are we doing here? We should just turn this over to Hannah. She knows what she's doing.
Thank you, Hannah.
Yeah, now I'm afraid that Hannah's going to start a competing podcast and give us a run for our money. All right. Anything else about Rose Gwyneth or Gabriel Sneed? Just the name alone sounds skeevy, right? Sneed.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Topic number 3, Great Expectations. So we had the Haunted Man and the Ghost Bargain. We had A Tale of Two Cities, and now we have Great Expectations. I shouldn't have to explain those, should I?
No, you shouldn't.
Especially after watching this episode, right?
Nice topics.
Yep. So topic number 3, the Gelth. Pity the Gelth. And so these are our rather gassy aliens, gaseous aliens. And obviously the reason I chose Great Expectations for this title is because essentially we're presented that, oh, hey, the Gelth are going to be like these they're just, they're formless. They lost their bodies in the Time War. They're stuck in these gaseous forms. And all they're looking for is just, like some dead bodies to hang out in.
A
few. There's only just a few of us. And, but unfortunately it kind of turns into something a little bit more of an alien invasion. And so we kind of expect one thing, but then we get something else with the Gelth, and that's why I kind of chose that. So, Jesse, we'll start with you this time.
So one of the things...
Yeah, go ahead. Go right
One of the
it.
things that, the last topic, I mentioned one of the things that you can criticize the Doctor about is losing people. Mm-hmm. The other thing that, and this sets up a future that often happens, mm-hmm. Is the Doctor tries to save a species. He tries to save. He says, we can get this, and I will take you to a place where you can live out your lives. He's got a plan. We're going to find. I know there are millions of hospitable planets out there. I can do this. And they don't want to hear anything about it. And then so the Doctor, in his mind, I think justifies that I gave you a chance to redeem yourself. I gave you a chance to survive. You chose not to. So now then you're going to have to take the consequences. We're going to bring this up in next week, I guess, right? Yeah.
Right.
When we do that 2-parter.
Yeah, we talk about that. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And so I like that. I liked seeing that because they went, oh, that is a very Doctor move. They were creepy villains. I love the idea that Another thing that they did early in this modern era is we're going to have vampires, but they're not vampires. We're going to have zombies, but they're not zombies. We're going to have a ghost, but they're not ghosts. We're going to have a Frankenstein monster, but it's not a Frankenstein monster. We're going to have a mummy, but it's not a mummy. And I love that the idea that these were not zombies, but they were zombies. And so great villain, great execution. So yeah, I think it's perfect.
Okay. Hannah, any thoughts on the Gelf?
I really, I definitely kind of nice way to I thought it was a nice way to highlight the Doctor's alienness, because you have the debate with him and Rose in this episode about, do we give the Gelf the bodies they want? Because it's, on one hand, we as humans, we consider the dead as sort of untouchable or sacred, and he comes back to Rose at one point with, aren't you an organ donor? And she says, well, yeah, and he comes back with, how is that any different? But I definitely think that the Gelf were the right level of creepy, more so when they were occupying somebody as opposed to the early 2000s CGI, but
right,
product of the time. Though I do think this pretty sinister thing about them is they are obviously playing off of the Doctor's, at this time war guilt.
Yes.
So that's probably why he's pushing back more against Rose in this story than he normally would, because he couldn't save the Time Lords, and he had to basically sacrifice them in order to stop the Daleks, so he considers this his penance.
Yeah, that's one thing you have to kind of keep in context, especially with Series 1, is that this is the Doctor fresh out of the Time War. He's damaged goods. He's feeling responsible because, he sacrificed Gallifrey to win the war and caused so many deaths, and he's got all this burdening his conscience. Of course, that gets completely erased later on, but that's neither here nor there. And but it still weighs at this point. As far as the Doctor knows, it weighs on him. And then in the Gelf, like you said, they kind of take advantage of that. They try to present themselves, well, hey, we wouldn't be in this position if it wasn't for your stupid little Time War. And so the Doctor kind of feels a little bit responsible. And he's thinking, well, okay, if there's only a few of them, then what's the big deal if they have a few bodies? Because, hey, it's not like the people that were using them are using them anymore. So what's the big deal? And that's his approach. And then Rose, on the other hand, is just like, wait a minute, what are you doing? These used to be human beings. Shouldn't you be a little bit more respectful? And so go ahead.
Questions.
Go ahead, Jesse.
Couple questions. One, do they realize he is a Time Lord? Because I didn't get the feeling they did. They were just matter of fact saying that we died in this long Time War. So they weren't trying to manipulate him. He feels the guilt. Well, so that's how I read the episode. That's how I watched the episode.
Well, I don't think they necessarily needed to know that he was a Time Lord. I think they just saw him being considerate of them.
Okay, yeah. So, okay, I'll get that.
So I'm guessing they picked up on it and were like, well, this guy at least is, looking out for us, so maybe we could use that.
Yeah, so they weren't using it as, oh, hey, Gallifreyan, you owe us this.
Yeah,
get that.
Yeah, they didn't say anything like, this is your fault, Time Lord. They didn't say anything like that. No. You're absolutely right.
So,
but I think they noticed his concern for them.
Yes, I agree with that.
I mean, and he's also the one he was the only one at the table who reacted to, hey, we lost our bodies at the time during the Time War.
Right.
Absolutely. Now, I don't remember if it's this episode or if it's the Time War is mentioned again in the first season, right?
It is.
It is.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So it may have been the second time, but once again, going back to whenever I'm watching this,
Right.
probably 2008, 2009, I pull up my laptop. Hey, Ken, this Time Lord sounds really fun. What episodes are those? Can I borrow those DVDs?
Right. You talked about
And
that, yeah.
And Ken had to go, yeah, that hasn't happened. We haven't seen that. What? And then, that was the topic of the lunch. How could something this major not happen on screen?
Coming soon from Big Finish Productions.
Right.
Yeah.
You only had to wait 15 years to get that. It's no big deal.
But as a new fan, I was just fascinated by that idea that something that big they're talking about didn't happen, and it was just as big as a mystery to classic Who fans as it was a new fan. Like, what, Time War? What's this Time War thing?
Yeah.
So that's amazing.
Well, it helped give that sense of mystery, and that's what RTD was trying to do, because here he is, he's relaunching Doctor Who, and so he comes up with this mystery, but he doesn't really feel the need to explain it, because the mystery should be enough to just the idea that it's out there. Just put the concept out there and let fan theories go, because you know how fans can get. They have one or two theories to talk about. And so it kind of became its own little thing without him really having to do all that much, apart from dropping a Time War reference here, a Time War reference there, and let everybody else fill in the gaps.
Yeah, it's a MacGuffin.
Yeah.
And as Hitchcock said, and a really good one. And then I think it's amazing how Russell T. Davies and then Stephen Moffat and have taken that on, and Chibnall even to that, and expanded on that. So that's really nice.
Yeah. And anything else to add on that?
You know what?
Yeah.
I think we've just about covered it.
All right. Well, I'm going to take your advice, because since you're doing so well today. All right. So the Gelth, I feel kind of left. I mean, just don't want to talk about them just a little bit more. That I feel kind of let down that we haven't seen them again. I think that the idea of oh, hey, you've got some gaseous aliens that could take over dead bodies. That's
I can see that.
I think that's a potential for a recurring villain a little bit.
Yeah, I think so.
Especially it's somewhere around the same time period.
Yeah.
That
I think so.
I think we could easily see them come back and a return appearance. So I was a little disappointed.
It'd be a good Halloween episode.
Yeah.
Or I was just thinking, if you really want to go all out with the gore and the grotesqueness of that, you could do since you got Eve Myles, you could do a Torchwood audio about that.
There you go.
Yeah, that would be really good. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be kind of interesting. Or even better, what if Gwen fell through the time rift and met her ancestor?
Yeah, I like it.
Oh, you must be me great auntie.
great.
Yes,
exactly. That could be fun. No. When you watched both of you watched this the first time, were you at all surprised that the Gelth turned out to be, an alien invading force as opposed to just wanting some help? Or did you go, no, it's Doctor Who, of course they are. Did it surprise you at all?
Hannah, do you want to go first?
I'm thinking back to 2012 me, and I don't think I was surprised just because of how creepily they were framed at the start of the episode. Okay. So
yeah, I don't remember being shocked. I remember just going along with the story.
Right.
And so not a big reveal as far as I'm concerned. So yeah.
Yeah, I was just kind of wondering if it,
No, that's fair.
The twist, surprised anyone, because I don't think it did me either. But I'd seen so much Doctor Who by now. I always look for okay, these guys are up to no good.
So I do think the jump scare of sort of like the Lee Gelf creature turning orange and flashing pointy teeth did
Right.
spook me a bit.
Yeah, it's kind of like, oh, you think I'm so this thing? Oh, surprise! I'm this evil alien. Yeah.
Mhm.
Surprise. So, yeah.
Another thing I picked up on this rewatch was, I know, related to the Gelf, but one of the corpses in the morgue, I think it's the bearded one that takes out Sneed.
Yeah.
He had purple feet. So, ugh.
Ugh.
Well, it was a little nippy that day. Everybody.
Died
You
of
probably
frost.
died
Yeah.
of frostbite, I guess.
Yes,
I
there we
don't know.
go.
There we go. All right, mystery solved. All right, anything else about this episode that we didn't discuss?
I can't think of anything.
Nothing else? All right. So you had your chance. All right. Favorite quotes. So this is always a fun little section of our show.
Hannah?
So Hannah pulls out the sheet of paper, so I'm guessing she wants to go first today.
Absolutely.
Go for it.
So this one's from Mr. Sneed. I did the bishop a favor once, made his nephew look like a cherub even though he'd been a fortnight in the wear. Perhaps he'll do us an exorcism on the cheap.
Yeah.
Yes, that was
discount
good.
exorcisms. Yeah, that always works out.
Absolutely, yes.
All right.
Now this one is from an exchange between Rose and the doctor. But it's 1869. How can I die now? And the doctor replies, time isn't a straight line. It can twist into any shape. You can be born in the 20th century and die in the 19th, and it's my fault. I brought you here. And
this is kind of, you bring up something interesting, that this is the first time I think that they introduced the time can be rewritten concept.
Except when it can't be.
Except when it can't be.
Anytime that happens, I think of that.
It's a fixed point in time if I need it to be. Otherwise, we can totally rewrite time.
Thank you, Charles. Yes, exactly.
Any other quotes, Hannah? I'm sorry to interrupt.
One more from Gwyneth. You're from London. I've seen London in drawings, but never like that. All those people rushing about half naked, for shame. And the noise. The metal boxes racing past, and the birds flying in the sky. No, they're metal as well. Metal birds with people in them. People are flying. And you've flown so far, further than anyone. The things you've seen, the darkness, the big bad wolf.
Nice.
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah,
Nice.
Eve Myles did a really great job with that scene.
She did.
Yeah.
You could see why he wanted to have her, be one of the leads on Torchwood.
Yeah, she's probably like, that's my Gwen right there.
Yep,
So,
good.
All right, Jesse, any quotes you'd like to share?
So I have two.
Go for it.
The first one, and you guys may have talked about this when I was rebooting, but the doctor.
You or the computer were rebooting? Which one was rebooting?
Both, I guess.
Okay, all right. You were both rebooting.
I was cursing, and poor Chris is like, what? I'm like,
but see, that would have made great audio. You should have done
it.
I hope you recorded that.
Yeah.
Next up, Everywhere After Dark.
Yes.
Yeah, I like that.
Doctor.
Nice.
I'm such a big fan, Charles Dickens. What? A big what? Doctor. Fan. Number one fan. That's me. How exactly are you a fan? In what way do you resemble a mean of keeping oneself cool?
Yeah.
I loved that back. I loved seeing, and I know you guys talked about it, I love seeing the Doctor being a fanboy for the writer. And that has been consistent, no matter who is the Doctor, his admiration of genius.
Exactly.
And the other one, which I thought was very poignant and very Dr. Whovian, when Rose says, think about it, though. Christmas, 1860. It happened once, just once, and it's gone. It's finished. It'll never happen again, except for you. You can go back and see days that are dead and gone, 100,000 sunsets ago. No wonder you never stay still. And the Doctor, not a bad life. And Rose Tyler, better with two. And I went, okay, you wanted to explain someone the series?
Right.
It's a pretty good explanation right there.
Yep. Yeah,
What
really.
you got, Charles?
Well, it's a good thing I wrote down some more quotes because, you guys took all some really good ones. That's okay. That's okay.
That's the problem with going last.
That's all right. That's all right. I'm willing to do that. The doctor catching Rose early on in the episode when she's just ready to rush outside, and he goes, "Where do you think you're going?" And Rose says, 1860. The doctor says, "Go out there dressed like that, you'll start a riot, Barbarella." Which is a nice obscure reference for sci-fi fans. There's a wardrobe through there. First left, second right, third on the left. Go straight ahead, under the stairs, past the bins. Fifth door on your left. Hurry up. So I always love it.
Quote.
Yeah. Now Tom Baker had kind of said something to that a little bit, like to Romana back in the day, and it cracks me up.
I love the quote. Mostly because I'm like, there's no way she's remembering that. Like, tell me again what day?
It's like a test or something that if you don't get it, you're not companion worthy, I guess.
I'm just going to assume that the TARDIS decided to be nice to Rose and just gave her a straight passageway.
Or had a flashing lights that tell her which way to go.
Now, if it was me, I would have been like, okay, hold on, let me get a sheet of paper here, write this down. Okay, so first left, okay, second right. No, you said third or second on the left. Third, okay, got it. All right. And then I would have gone through the whole spiel and said, look, you're going to slow this down for me.
Don't take the second right. That gets you to the swimming pool that's in the library.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly. And then another quote here where Dickens was talking with the doctor. I kind of talked about this a little bit. And Dickens says, can it be that I have the world entirely wrong? And the doctor says, not wrong. There's just more to learn. I think nice. That's a pretty profound quote. And lastly, the exchange between Rose and the doctor about the bodies. Rose says, you can't let them run around inside dead people. And the doctor replies, why not? It's like recycling.
Yes.
So here's doctor being very environmentally conscious there. You don't want all these dead bodies littering up the place, so why not just turn them over to the Gelf, right?
Absolutely.
I say you can take my organs and then just cremate what's left. I don't want to go in the ground.
It's like, give it to the Gelf. They're already gassy, so any methane that's produced, no big deal. All right. Rating. So, Hannah, we'll start with you first. What's your rating for this one?
I give it 9 out of 10 reanimated bodies.
Nice. Very nice. You like this one a lot, then?
Yep. Good.
All right, Jesse, how about you?
So I'm a little below her, though I do like it a lot. I said 8.5 out of 10 creepy seances.
Okay. Let's see. Well, Hannah kind of took my subject matter, so I'm going to go with 8.5 out of 10. Let's see. I'll go with. Let's see.
This is a really hard one to come up with.
This is a tough one. I'm trying to figure out something really good here. So.
Gas lamps. Whatever those
disappointing TARDISes.
Yeah, there you go. We'll do gas lamps. So that sounds good. All right. So 8.5 out of 10 gas lamps. So. Yeah.
I agree. There wasn't a lot of objects.
Cool objects. Yeah.
Yeah, we mentioned absolutely. Yes.
All right. So, but that's all right. But I really enjoy this one, and I think it's a very solid introduction to historical setting Doctor Who. So, reverse the player. Do we want to do that first, or we want to do your review next?
Oh, let's do reverse the polarity.
Okay. All right. I'll try and do a really quick one because I know we got a lot to do. So, reverse the polarity. I was trying to think of a good one to go back to, and I came up with, if you liked The Unquiet Dead, I recommend Image of the Fendal. This is the third serial from season 15 in 1977, written by Chris Boucher, or Boucher, take your pick. And in this one, it's a Tom Baker era story. And there's like this village of Fetchborough, where we have 4 scientists. This guy named Adam Colby, Max Stale, Thea Ransom, and Dr. Fendelman are doing tests on a human skull that they found in Kenya that's apparently 12 million years old. And when Dr. Fendelman starts to do this time scan to get an image of the owner of the skull reacts, locking onto Thea and releasing something in the prairie grounds that kills a passing hiker. The scan catches the attention of the 4th Doctor and Leela, who set off to find it before a continuum explosion destroys the planet. They separate, and Leela finds the cottage of Martha Tyler, and here's the major connection here. A local modern-day witch gifted with psychic powers gained after spending her childhood near a time fissure.
Ah, okay.
So that's the major connection I went with. And essentially what happens in this one, to kind of keep it really short, the skull is generating creatures to kind of keep the Doctor and kill people. And basically we find out that Thea is being taken over as the new host for the Fendal, and which is this creature that feeds off life energy and leaves nothing behind. And Stale turns out to be like a member of this local black magic cult and thinks he could use the Fendal to dominate others. So he and his followers essentially try to get a hold of the sonic time scanner to juice up the skull and trigger Thea's final transformation into the Fendal. And basically the cult members get kind of turned into Fendaline, these little minions of the Fendal, and then ultimately the Doctor has to rig the scanner to explode, and they grab the skull, which is now dormant, and they destroy the Pyre, and everything blows up really good because, hey, it's the 70s Doctor Who. And so the Doctor and Leela leave with a plan to dump the skull near a supernova, thus ending the Fendal forever. The end. At least until Big Finish does another audio.
Well, I did see a Torchwood audio with the Fendal in it,
right.
And it did. Funnily enough, it did have Eve Myles in it. So,
Yep.
There you go.
There's another connection right there. There you go. So that's what I recommend. Image of the Fendal. It's kind of one that kind of gets overlooked, I think, a little bit in the Tom Baker era. So I highly recommend checking it out.
Good.
All right, so that's my quick review. Now I'm going to turn things over to Jesse and Hannah, who are going to review Doctor Who: The Runaway TARDIS by Rebecca Gyllenhaal and Kim Smith. Now, yours truly was offered a review copy to be a part of this thing, but I never got my review copy. But Jesse thankfully has his. Hannah apparently has one as well. So Jesse, why don't I turn it over to you to kind of lead this discussion?
Yeah, so to give you a little bit more background, on our Next Stop Everywhere email address, someone had sent us and said, hey, do you want a review copy? And I talked to Charles. I said, well, hey, you get the review copy. I'll buy a copy for myself, and then we can do a little segment on it. And Charles was like, yeah, that's fine. And so after it got published, I got my copy. I read it. And then Charles was like, I didn't get a copy.
Yeah, and I responded. I said, hey, we'd love a copy. We'd love to talk about it on the show.
Yeah.
Never heard back. So.
And so we were talking about that last week, and Hannah said, "Oh, I've got a copy." So it is a children's book. It is a children's picture book. It is a very sweet story about Lizzie that is starting a new school, and she doesn't have any friends, so she runs away. And she ends up stumbling into the TARDIS, hence the runaway TARDIS, and Lizzie has an adventure with the Doctor. We won't spoil too many stories, and Lizzie comes back, and the Doctor teaches her how to make friends.
Yep. It's the 13th Doctor, I should point out, right?
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is.
All right.
Yeah. I really loved the story. I thought they captured the 13th Doctor's personality. There is not a lot of Easter eggs in it. You do see the 3 modern companions, toward the end, and then the final page.
So you do get Graham, Ryan, and Yaz.
Yeah, they're not even even mentioned in the text. They just pop up at the end as Lizzie's leaving the TARDIS, and they just have to be walking by. So
okay,
yeah, they're going into the TARDIS. But Lizzie's bedroom has multiple Easter eggs, including Jelly Babies, a Fez, a Tom Baker scarf, and I never can say the name right. The adipose.
Hey, you got it right.
Okay, so I did not catch any more. Did you?
I
Hannah?
did not. No.
Okay. So Hannah, what were your thoughts on the book?
I feel like this was what In the Forest of the Night was trying to be back in the day, but I think
interesting,
because you have the child wandering through the woods and coming across the TARDIS. I think this worked better as a children's book, in my opinion. The art style is very cutesy in its watercolors, so it's very vibrant to look at. I definitely think the 13th Doctor is a good choice for this type of story when you're dealing with kids, just because of the personality of that Doctor being all fun and sort of very personable. Yeah. So would you
so if you had any relatives or friends that had kids that would appreciate this, would you recommend it?
I think I would. Maybe more if they're fans of Doctor Who, but I don't think a kid who picked this book up who never heard of the show would be confused walking away.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it is an oversized, nice size, a little bit bigger than a standard comic.
Mm-hmm. A nice hardback, so
it is a hardback.
Kids can't destroy it as easily. Yeah,
right. And it is something, and it there is enough that when you read if you're reading to your children or your nieces or nephews, there is plenty of pictures, but also plenty of texts for them to follow along. I enjoyed the story. It's a very simple story, but it's a cute story, and it's a sweet story. So, yeah, I definitely – in fact, there's only one rating you can use.
Yeah.
So, but I give it 9 out of 10 peanut butter sandwiches.
Okay. Hannah, do you have a rating for that?
I give it 9 out of 10. Hang on. What's the term for them? 9 out of 10 glorps.
Nice.
Yes, they meet the glorps that are great engineers,
okay.
And she goes on various adventures, and you get to see how it's a fun story. And I think I don't think that necessary Hannah of David K. Proctor, or any of our regular listeners. If
Holly,
you don't have kids, Holly, it's kind of expensive because it is just such a thing. But I was glad I bought it to talk about it on the show, and I certainly thought it was a fun book to have.
This is one in a series of picture books called Pop Classics. I got one for the X-Files, and I know they got one also for Buffy the Vampire Slayer, where you have the Scooby Gang as little elementary school age kids at a sleepover.
Oh,
so it's kind of cute.
Yeah.
So that's cool, and I'd be kind of curious to read the X-Files one because I'm a big X-Files fan.
Yeah.
Earth children are weird.
Cool. Yeah. That's So my big question here is, can I use this to get my younger relatives hooked on Doctor Who? Do you think? My nephews and nieces, little nephews and nieces.
I think you could, because it explains the concept, because the TARDIS does go to multiple places.
Right.
And because it's in beautiful watercolors, each world looks a little different, and it's a beautiful to see.
Something that grab the imagination and go like,
yeah.
This is kind of cool,
And then you could, you could pick a different. You could selectively pick a Doctor Who episode to share with them to say, okay, see how the Doctor traveled. Now let's do another one, and that would be. I think they would get it. I think that would get them at least enough interested to want to watch it on TV.
All right, that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
I like that. All right, that's good to know. So, because I'm all about the brainwashing the kids into liking Doctor Who.
Yes.
So,
absolutely.
So anything I can use, I'm all for, because we need more Doctor Who fans, as far as I'm concerned.
There's a quote in here. Let me see.
I have one if you don't. So,
I do. Yep.
Okay, go ahead.
Lizzie asks the Doctor, "Do you ever get lonely?" And the Doctor replies, "Everyone gets lonely sometimes, but I make friends wherever I go, and I never forget the old ones." So I just thought that was nice.
That was exactly the line I wrote down.
That's a great quote. That's a great quote. I'm glad that was included.
Yeah.
That's good. So, all right. Well, I'm sold on the recommendation, guys. So I'm going to probably have to do a little Christmas shopping.
Absolutely.
And on Amazon and start sending this out to my relatives. All right. Listener feedback. We did get 2 this time. We get Holly Mack and the return of said David K. Proctor.
So I will do David K. Proctor since you say I always do.
All right.
Holly.
Okay.
So David's. Sorry I wasn't able to participate last week. I rarely buy Big Finish audio, but only because if I bought one, I'd buy them all. I did enjoy your podcast on it.
Buy them all, David. Buy them all.
There's a sale on the first 50.
I really like Christopher Eccleston, and if he had done more shows, he'd probably be my modern Doctor. Who doesn't like Dickens? He can be tough to read, but the movies based on his work are almost all great movies because of the quality of his writing. I loved it when he says, "What did Shakespeare?" I assume this riff is where Torchwood later builds its headquarters.
Probably.
This reminds me of the later episode where the Doctor meets Van Gogh. We had the same thing. It's TV. It's TV like this that makes me look up the real people and learn about them. Tesla and many others as well.
There you go.
I give this episode 9.5 out of 10 Cardiff Christmases. 10 is usually reserved for regeneration episodes. Keep up the good work. All 3 of y'all did a great job last week, and I'm sure this week will be the same. Thanks, David K. Proctor.
Well, thank you, David.
Thank you, David.
Yes. Yeah, it's very kind of you. I'm glad you enjoyed last week's discussion. So even though you didn't buy the Big Finish audio, but hopefully we can convince you at some point to get Chimes of Midnight, because it's really good. I really recommend it.
It's $1.20. It's $1.50 on BigFinish.com right now.
There you go.
Off sale.
Nice. We should be getting a cut. I'm sorry. They should be sending us free Big Finish audios or something, because
yes, they should.
We plug them so much. All right. Also writing in about the Unquiet Dead is, of course, Holly Mack, and who always is kind enough to send in her feedback. So she writes in, "Hey, Charles, Jesse, and Hannah." So everybody getting a shout out. The Gelth episode, and hello Cardiff, and the Rift pre-Torchwood. I forgot how much I enjoyed this episode. Nice to see the Doctor meet a historical figure and fanboy over him. Eve Myles playing Gwyneth. It was nice that they made a nod to her character in Journey's End, with the Doctor asking Gwen if she had a relative living during 1869. Love the bonding that Rose did with Gwyneth. Also, we get more information about the Time War from the Gelth. Not that much, but we got some. Gwyneth offering to help her, quote, angels, unquote, to help send them back. I'm still amazed at how well Dickens takes all the Doctor's conversations and what he saw with his own two eyes in stride. I think a few good or a good few, if they were in his shoes and saw those things, they would be running from their room, and they were in and screaming. The doctor's starting to realize again how dangerous traveling can be for both him and his companion, where you could very well die during a trip through space and time. Dickens saving the day with a gas to get the Gelth to leave. Gwyneth making the ultimate sacrifice. Yeah, you felt bad for Gwyneth, didn't you?
Yes.
Dickens getting some ideas to finish his stories, which sadly he didn't get to finish that one. Dickens asking the question of the ages as to who the doctor is. We didn't talk about that. But of course he just kind of like passes it off with the whole like, well, I'm just a traveler, doing my thing. I love the doctor's response of just a friend passing through. I'll wrap it up here, Holly from Wisconsin. So thank you, Holly. It's always lovely to hear from you. And I want to give a shout out to Holly because, of course, as a member of the Five-ish Fangirls podcast, they do some great stuff. They talk about Doctor Who and all kinds of cool sci-fi, geeky stuff. So I heartily recommend checking out their podcast. They're always kind to us, so as far as I'm concerned, we should be kind right back. So everybody give them a listen. They're great people. Great people.
I mean, if you want just further plugging him, last week they did an episode on Labyrinth with starring David Bowie.
Nice. Very nice.
Very nice.
That's very cool because, as a Twin Peaks fan, I'm all about David Bowie, so that's cool. And I also love his music, so that goes without saying. All right. If you want to be like Holly and David, please do. Write to us. Next Stop Everywhere, smg@gmail.com. That's Next Stop Everywhere, SMG for Southgate Media Group at gmail.com. Or reach out to us on the Twitter at Next Stop SMG on the Twitter machine. Or Facebook, Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast, where I believe we're only like 8 people away from 400 likes on Facebook. So that would be kind of cool, right? If we get to 400. And also check us out on Instagram at Next Stop Everywhere Podcast. We definitely appreciate that as well if you're so kind. And of course, if you think about it, if you enjoy what we do here, please share our links if you can, or if you have any friends that you think would like our podcast, and you deem us worthy, and I hope you do. Please kind of help us spread the word and share our information with them, because we'd obviously love the new listeners, and it'd be kind of cool. Then you could talk Next Stop Everywhere, what just happened, or in our episodes with them. So just a friendly suggestion from yours truly. All right, Hannah, where can they reach you on the interwebs while everybody waits for our next episode?
Well, Charles, they can find me on Instagram at My Lady of Sass, on Twitter at HT Skorapa, that is HTEASKORAPA, and I'm also on Facebook at just Hannah Skorapa.
Nice. Everybody check out Hannah. She's a ball on Instagram and also on Twitter. Lots of great Doctor Who content and very poignant observations. If you loved her observations here, you should definitely check her out on Twitter and Instagram. So, highly recommended by yours truly as well. Jesse, how about you?
Well, you can find me on the internet, mostly on Twitter, at Jesse Jackson DFW. You can hear me talk every week about Stargirl with Charles on the Fandom Zone podcast. We have been discussing that wonderful CW and DC Universe series. It is a lot of fun, perfect summer viewing. If you haven't watched it, it is available on the CW app or on DC Universe. I suggest you go check it out. And then you can also hear me talk music and sometimes comics on Set Listing Bruce, the Bruce Springsteen podcast, where I have talked to fans of Bruce from around the world. And lately I've been doing a lot of comic fans that are Springsteen fans, so that's been a lot of fun. Charles, how about you? Don't you do a podcast or two?
Yeah, just one or two maybe. So if You want to reach me, please reach out to me on Twitter at Charles Skaggs or Instagram at Charles Skaggs. Facebook, of course, Charles Skaggs in Hilliard, Ohio, and my blog of geeky things. Come on, you.
Damn good coffee. And hot.
Damn good coffee and hot as Hannah raises her coffee mug container in solidarity, I believe. So I hope your coffee is still hot and damn good. So, all right.
Unfortunately, no.
That's all right. That's all right. Well, we have been talking like almost 90 minutes here. So, so my blog, you can find I talk about all kinds of comic book sci-fi news of my other podcasts that I do for Southgate Media Group, including, the aforementioned Phantom Zone podcast that I do with Jesse, where we're currently talking Stargirl, like you said, and hey, Stargirl got picked up for season 2, so I'm sure we'll talk about more down the line. It's a fun little show, and I highly recommend it if you haven't been watching it. Very cute show, and a lot of cool stuff going on in that. And then also, of course, Titan Talk, the Titans podcast, where DJ Nick and I are talking Doom Patrol Season 2 and having a ball doing that. And going to have a special guest joining us this week as Holly Mack has asked to join us on Titan Talk because, hey, the Five-ish Fangirls podcast has taken the week off, so their loss, I guess, is our gain. And so that's going to be a lot of fun as we talk Doom Patrol. And then also Ghostwood, the Twin Peaks podcast that I do with Zan Sprouse, where we talk all things Twin Peaks, David Lynch, and obviously, if you've heard Zan here on the podcast, we do all kinds of pop culture references. And we're going to be talking about this week the 2001 Mulholland Drive, the film by David Lynch that we haven't talked about yet on the show for some weird reason, but it's been a lot of fun watching this. And if you enjoy what we do here on Next Up Everywhere, I hope you'll check it out because it's a great film and we're going to have a lot of fun discussing it. So stay tuned for that, if you would. Otherwise, coming up next week, next time on Next Stop Everywhere, episode 192, we're going to be talking, and this is a big one, Human Nature / the Family of Blood. And Jesse, I know, has been wanting to talk about this one.
Yes.
Joining us as special guest companion on this one, Lee Leonard is going to be joining us. And it's been a long time since we've had Lee on the podcast. He's been very patient waiting for this one. So I think it's got to be a lot of fun as we talk about this very classic David Tennant era two-parter, which we kind of already referenced in this episode. So it kind of segues really nicely. And as we get to see what the Doctor would be like if he or she becomes human in this one. All right. So since Skype is acting up on all of us right now,
yes,
at least especially me, so we probably should cut our losses here. Hannah, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it when you come on. You always give great insights, and I appreciate you helping Jesse talk about the Runaway TARDIS. I thought that was awesome. How cool! How weird is it that we are reviewing Doctor Who children's books on Next Stop Everywhere, right? And but I hope you had a good time.
I did. Thank you.
Charles's gratitude. It's always fun to have you on, and you're welcome anytime. There's always a seat for you in our TARDIS. Charles, thank you as always. You and I know I say this often, but it really is true. You keep us all on track. You keep us moving. Very much for being the bestest co-hostess in the TARDIS in Doctor Who land. So thank you for that.
Well, I try my best, even when the Skype is being glitchy.
Yes.
Skype seems glitchy.
Skype shakes fist. So everybody, thank you so much for listening. And then come on back next week as Lee Leonard returns to Next Stop Everywhere after too long of an absence to help Jesse and myself talk Human Nature, the Family of Blood, right here on Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.